Hi, I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Casey.
Welcome to our farmstead, Cornucopia Orchards. Early morning runs to get supplies are now nighttime drives. This time, we're getting supplies for the substructure of our covered porch at the top of the house. So this is where we're going to have our deck. We've just been throwing all the material from up above down here, and then I clean it out once a week. But that's going to stop pretty soon because with this muck that we're coming into and more rain, it'd be nice to be able to get in the house without that. So I'm buttoning up some of these parts and pieces of the taping, and I know it looks horrendous, especially right here. This is the first side I started on, and to be honest, guys, I didn't even know that there was such a thing as a depth limiter for a nail gun. So, but a lot of learning on the go. So we're gonna get this deck prepped and then start getting it put in. I've got some Siga tape here. This is Fentrim, and you can see that I've already applied it for most of this way around. And if I'd known I was doing that at the very beginning, I probably would have left a little gap here and then taped over it with the zip. Let me just show you how I'm applying this. So the Siga tape is a double strip, which is really convenient, and it lets you get where you're gonna go to start it. In this case, I'm just gonna start from the inside and just overlap the existing tape. I could start from the outside, doesn't really matter. Now it's gonna peel back just a little bit and get that exactly where I want it. So then I'm just gonna get this similar on this side. Damien, broom, it goes inside. I don't want dirt on the tape. And then match up the bottom seam, nice and tight. And then I just get a little pressure on this end. I like to just kind of take it a bit at a time, make sure we're staying even. And then to avoid getting any wrinkles, you just kind of gently as you go, pull it up. And then we will find a spot over here where that'll probably will cause us to have a wrinkle. But I'm not worried about it because when we go to smooth it on, it's pretty easy to get that out, so long as we allow for it. So I've got the basics on, and I'm just gonna try and take it a little bit at a time. And I just run it up. And you can grab the bottom, and that will help make sure there's no little fish mouths. Nice firm contact with this applicator. And you don't want to run it this way. If you run it this way when you're still applying it, I found it creates wrinkles as you go. So I've got that nicely installed. Now we're going to peel the bottom tape. And I'm just going to push in and kind of work the tape in. I'm watching for any spot where it might be kind of coming up and fixing that. If your sheathing is straight, this will also help to give you a smooth line at the bottom. My sheathing is not straight. And we just go along and just run it like this. Once it's already been pressed down, then it's okay to run that sideways, and it's not going to cause any problems.
Pig, pig, pig.
Ready toward us.
Hi, girl.
Hey. Hey. What are you doing? What's Piglet doing?
What's up, girl? Hi, pig, pig.
Don't to tell all your friends there's more past.
So this is part of the house roof. I mean, the post that's going in here, and the post needs to be inset from 10 feet and 10 feet. So on this side, you can see we have 10 feet and I've marked off the line there. Very workable, not a problem. And then we move this, and this is the fun one. So you go 10 feet. If I can do this one-handed, probably can't. Okay. So then we go 10 feet there, and there's the 10-foot mark. This does not please me. Yet another instance where my concrete contractor has really just made things way harder than it need to be. And if you have a great contractor, I mean, we're off by half an inch there. You know, it can be a real blessing. If you have a bad contractor, it can haunt you your entire build. All right, so we've got our bracket in, and yes, that is off center. I talked to the county about that, and it is acceptable to have it slightly off center. It makes me feel a certain way, but everything about our foundation, that concrete installer made me feel a certain way. So if it will pass, then it will pass. This wall is the first wall I'm going to throw a board on, and I'm basically going to base that off of that door. So you want your deck to be down and not level with your home's floor for reasons of water infiltration. And while this is a covered deck, and that's not a huge concern, we may expand this around and down to the other door, and we want it to be able to be level at the house. So this should be the same as it goes down, and the deck's going to come out and have a bevel downwards off slope. And that's for rain to move away from the home. And so you definitely want to make sure that if water were to be driven by rain and it hits that, it can't infiltrate into the floor at all. And so you have to leave a gap for the depth of your boards, and you have to leave a little bit of an extra gap to make sure that if you're pressure washing or whatever, it's not going to be able to get up and then into the floor. Code does require, at least in our area, code requires a bottom flash kick out and then a top flash that comes over that first PT board. So these boards back here are 7.5 inch 2x8, and these boards right here are 9.25 2x10. And the reason I'm running these 2x10s is because the joist is going to come up to about that much of the board, and that gives me all that space for a nice drop down for the flashing.
Daddy, look at this. It's a bug.
You found a bug? What kind of bug?
It's
A beetle bug. A bee, okay. So we have our 2 lines marked, kind of hard to see, but right there and right there. Those are our top of board and bottom board for the 2x10. And I need that line marked because that's gonna be where I put in my lower section of flashing. So this is just a 3/8. That's what our siding is gonna be, a 3/8 kick out. And that brings any water that manages to get behind the board down and out around the siding. So we're gonna get this one installed first. Just gonna use some galvanized roof nails and get that one on, and then that will provide a nice handy seat as well for us to put our 2x10 boards onto and get those installed. You are supposed to provide some kind of way, I mean, you can obviously see that there's some small gapping in there that will keep the water to where it cannot, not come down and follow the flashing out where it to get behind. And then we also will be zip taping the top Z flashing as well. So a lot of tape, but a nice assembly for water intrusion. All right, so second sheet of this underneath flashing. And I've just created a little shelf there on the corner. I could have cut it off, but I feel like that's more than sufficient for this. And I am putting a slope on this one. So you can see, maybe, if it'll come through clear enough for you there. You can see that we are off bubble. In fact, our bubble is slightly out of the first line. That's to get us to about 1/8 or a little bit more of drop over the distance. So our deck is going to slope outwards this way instead of this way. And our joists are running this way, not across this way. That's in line with the way that the floor joists run in the house. And that has to do with the interconnections that you have between your deck and the floor. And it's also going to mimic what it is out here. So it's going to be the same thing if we ever extend this. It'd be joists this way, 6 foot long, and then, you know, your outside joist or beams are going to go that way. So that's why we're doing that. But I'm going to get this one nailed up and taped as well, and then we'll be ready for board. So just to get me started, I went ahead and attached one of these Ledgerlok screws, which is what my plans call for, into the bottom over there, just to hold it up onto the flashing. And you want to keep it up off of the pan just a hair, and that will help make sure that, you know, you've got that space for the water to go underneath. I'm going to go ahead and run these all the way across. It's calling for 16-inch on center and 2 at each of those locations, about 1 3/4 or 2 inches in from the bottom and the top. One thing I am going to do as I do that is I'm going to make sure that I'm missing my my joists, because I don't want them to get in the way of the hangers, and the hangers are going to end up being about the same spacing as the 16 on center is what I'm running for my joists. I don't want to have to adjust the deck joists to account for me putting these Ledgerloks in the wrong place. So our first piece of flashing that goes over top, and all this is to help guide the water down and over this board versus allowing it to go down behind the board. We do have the kick out flashing on the bottom that is to protect the top of the siding, and it has just that right fit for that. And this one, you can tell, is clearly not going to go down too far, such that you won't be able to have a good drainage distance between here and your first joist. So I've just used metal snips to cut this corner such that I can bring it all the way in. It's nice and flush on the outside, and we are ready to go ahead and nail this up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. The tape doesn't grip great in the wet, is what I found. That first layer, I took some time to really dry it. We're just going to leave it like this and then go ahead and work on the joists after this. Well, I've seen him sloughing this dirt right here. I didn't want him jockeying back and forth too much, but yeah, not really where I intended it to go. That'll take some extra work. So as we're getting this ready for our layout, now that we have that flashing on, you'll notice that we did offset, as I mentioned. So here's our run of our screws, and those just pucker through just into the inside and then break through the interior boards, what they're required to do. And our 64, our 48, so forth and so on, will miss those completely, which is exactly what we want to see. So the interior floor joists are on centered from the outside into this 16-inch. And I just missed that just a little teeny bit with this wall stud, but you can see that that's pretty close as far as stacking that goes. And that might just be the sheathing or the nail pattern or something else, but I did double check and make sure. One thing to note is that Simpson hangers are dual rated. They will usually work for joists one lumber size larger than their nominal value. These are 2x6 hangers, and they work for 2x8 as well. For decks, you want Z-Max or galvanized hangers and fasteners and flashing rated for exterior and contact with pressure-treated wood. All right, so not strictly speaking the way things should be done in giant air quotes, but I'm attaching 2 boards to the end of the structure here, and the second board is going to basically have to sit on the edge here. I did not have a double 2x6, but it only calls for one 2x6 to begin with. I'm just doing it to mirror what's on the deck that goes on the other side of the house. And on this end, it's actually going to pass and connect in on the side of the post. And so it's going to be plenty strong. It's only called for one attachment, and I can still toenail this side. And we are at level right here where we're sitting. So we're ready for that to keep going. And then once that is on, then it's just make sure it's plumbed and then measure across here. And then we have our cross piece. And the same on this side over here, I'm going to be putting in a interior joist. We'll likely be installing a deck that will span 6 feet and run the length of the building from the utility door to this edge of the deck we are building today. On this end, we will join it to the existing deck by making this double joist into a triple that will tie into the wall as a ledger for the remaining 6 feet out of 16. We'll run that deck on 2x6 joists with a 2x8 ledger, as the span is less than this 10x10. We could run it cantilevered on a beam, or, like this deck, hangered on both ends. Joist hangers are up on the top, and we are already on the bottom. I'm going to just put a ton of nails into here, into there, join those 2 boards together, and then I'll start cutting and getting these placed. These ones I'll just toenail in, and then when I'm in town, I'll pick up some more hangers, 2 more of those hangers. And this is ready for use. I mean, I can stick extra sheathing on there, or go ahead and, you know, if we feel like it, go ahead and get the, get the actual floor stuff and get that placed, which would be nice, but we'd still want to protect it from, overwear. But this is going to be a really nice thing for us to have up on this top part. Even while we're working, before I put in something formal, this is a very short step. So it's not, I'll reposition this concrete pad maybe right up here and get it leveled. And it'll be a very small, jump to go from here onto the deck. And then if we ever do put in that 6-foot strip there, the pad can just come right in here, and that'll be the steps down onto it. This is a pretty small height on the top. Down here, it's more than enough that it'll require railing across here, which is just fine. So this will be like railed and kind of private, because the neighbors behind us, then they don't have to see us, we don't have to see them. And it'll just be a nice little space when we're all done. We're finished on our install, minus hangers for these 2 boards. Everything else is done, and we are ready for putting on the actual deck material. It sounds like we probably will do that. Now, there is a post that goes up to the roof here, and over top, this roof continues out on a hip rafter, and this whole wall is, you know, this whole area is covered. It's a covered porch. But I can just attach directly to the top of that. I might cut that down to the level of the PT. I'm not sure yet. It's a little higher than the finished boards will be right now. That's pressure treated. That was left over from a cut that was off of the shop. We put all the poles in and then just cut them long to whatever they were supposed to be once they were in the ground. So, but yeah, this is ready to go. It dried off enough. You can see there's some sun. I got the zip tape except for right there at the door. That's gonna need cleaned and more dry than it is. So that may have to wait a little bit, but the rest of it is ready to go. How do you put it on?
Yeah.
Well, it's supposed to catch. See, like it's on your thumb, you have to put it on just like that.
Thanks for watching.
See you next time.